Welcome to the Magic Ladies Podcast, where we discuss everything Orlando Magic basketball. I'm your host, Jalon Dixon, and today we'll be wrapping up NBA preseason for the Orlando Magic, so that will be the sole focus of today's episode. But before we get into that, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily Orlando Magic content. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers and trying to become the biggest Orlando Magic podcast here on the YouTube platform. And the NBA regular season is right around the corner, so you can lock in with us every single Monday through Friday for all 82 games plus the postseason, because we already know we're making the playoffs. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into today's episode. And like I said, we're going to be focusing very strictly on this New Orleans Pelicans game because it's the best sample size we have of seeing a complete Orlando Magic team, aside from obviously Jalen Suggs, who's still very questionable for opening night. Now, let's start with Wendell Carter. We'll start with Wendell Carter Jr. and the rest of the starting lineup. I'm going to get into Wendell Carter Jr. a little bit more specifically in his own section, but I will say he finished with 14 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 blocks in 29 minutes. More on that a little bit later, but he was the most complete player in the starting lineup, in my personal opinion, in this game. But let's actually go to the two superstars first. Always lead with stars, right? Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero both had very solid nights across the board. They scored 13 of the Orlando Magic's first 15 points, all primarily on drives. Franz Wagner finished the game with a team high 24 points. Both guys got to the free throw line at least 4 times, which I think could be a little bit better, but at least 4 times. And more specifically, they both played 25 minutes or more in this game, which I think is also very important, again, when talking about the ramp up. Now, something Paulo Banchero said after the game is, I thought this was probably our best team effort of the preseason. There are things we could clean up, but it was a good effort and a good building block going into opening night. He also says, offensively, we played a good game. We played good all game. Great pace, sharing the ball, finding the next action. And then defensively, a little bit inconsistent, but obviously it's preseason. It's good to see some mistakes as well. Have them on them and learn from them. I think he meant have them own them and learn from them, but nonetheless. So very important that these two forwards in particularly played well going into the opening night, because I think for them, the idea is just to get the juices flowing, playing next to each other, playing in a more competitive environment. Again, still only preseason, but nonetheless a situation where you're trying to kind of work out the final kinks and understand what your team really looks like before they go into games that truly matter. Now, I'm going to actually transition now to Wendell Carter Jr. because I think he's a better representation of how important this preseason has been. So, for Wendell Carter Jr., obviously I mentioned 14.7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 blocks in 29 minutes. The 6 assists is so important because it's the way he got them. Wendell Carter Jr. has slowly but surely become a little bit of a on-ball playmaker at the low post position throughout this preseason. And this game was the best actualization of that, where he actually got 3 of his assists in dump off situations in a two big lineup next to Jonathan Isaac. Something that could be an interesting play on a jumbo lineup, that the jumbo lineup combination that Jamal Mosley can experiment with in the actual regular season. Situations where I believe in 2 situations particularly, Wendell Carter Jr. got the ball in the low block, made a move, and when a second defender slid, made the pass underneath to get Jonathan Isaac an easy finish around the rim. And this happened multiple times. There was also a situation where Wendell Carter Jr. had a tagged roller and Jonathan Isaac sunk underneath the basket and basically got a lob from Wendell Carter Jr. off the not the off the high post. So it's not just that he's getting these assists, just swinging the ball around and guys are hitting shots. It's the way that he's getting these open looks for his teammates. He's getting them from the angles of the low block in a position that's very different than what the Orlando Magic are used to, right? Unless it's Paulo Banchero mainly, this Orlando Magic team does not operate in the low post often. This is a slashing team. This is a driving team. This is a backdoor cutting team. This is a new wrinkle that opens up a lot because now I believe one of the assists also was like a kick out three, a kick out corner three to Jet Howard. Now they have the 3 point element that they didn't have before. Their ability to now spray from beyond the arc gives them this inside out game that if you have a facilitator like Paulo or now like a Wendell Carter Jr. on that low post and you have to respect their passing ability from back there, now people are going to be more likely to those tag or at least try to hold suit those 3 point shooters on the perimeter, which means even more physicality on the low block. And we know players, particularly like Paulo, get to the free throw line at a high rate. Wendell Carter Jr., I think is going to be obviously, I think I've said this throughout the summer, but I'll kind of reiterate it now. Wendell Carter Jr. is easily one of the most important players on this team. In terms of his development this season, if this team wants to be a postseason, like a postseason darling, right? The team that everybody thinks they are as a squad that can be really successful in the Eastern Conference this year. Is in terms of internal development and what that means for postseason success moving forward. You could even make an argument that Wendell Carter Jr. is the most important player in the starting five. I asked you guys in the comment section a video or two ago who you guys believed the most important starter is this upcoming season in terms of what they mean to this team elevating to the next level. And my personal answer, and now that I have kind of done the work, is Wendell Carter Jr. As I've said in the past, Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner, their roles are very defined. And if they don't get any better this season, they're still two players that average between 22 and 24 points a night, have all on-ball ability, and command the respect that like an all-star caliber player would respect. Jalon Suggs is a knockdown three-point shooter and has already made an All-NBA defensive team. Desmond Bane was acquired for this team to be a knockdown three-point shooter and another guy on the outside who could operate on ball as a shot creator. Everybody's role is defined. So is Wendell Carter Jr.'s, but he's the only one who hasn't fully actualized the role he's been asked to play to the fullest potential. We've seen Jalon Suggs have a career year. We've seen Desmond Bane develop as an on-ball threat because he was never asked to do this to that. He was never asked to necessarily be this kind of guy when he first came into the league with Memphis. He slowly but surely developed it both next to John Morant in the time where John Morant was off the floor. So we've seen him actualize this new archetype of being more of an on-ball threat as opposed to just a knockdown three-point shooter and a scrappy defender on the perimeter, right? And then Paulo Banchero's made an all-star team. Franz Wagner has played at the highest level in Eurobasket and has proven multiple times that he's capable of being an all-star forward in the Eastern Conference. Wendell Carter Jr. is the only guy who really hasn't actualized what it means to be a rim protecting center, and they struggled with that in the preseason, but to be a rim protecting center and a playmaking center down on the block that could also stretch the floor a little bit and stress the defense out in a way that now you have to respect him in a way that opens up things for Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero offensively around the basket that much more. Wendell Carter Jr. is the only player out of that starting five that we haven't seen peak somewhere that says, oh, okay, this guy can be like a top 10 player at his position. Every other play, and I think it reflects even when we discussed the ESPN Top 100. I know that's not gospel, but we've done the ESPN Top 100, we've done Bleacher Report's Top 100 or Top 50, and it's very reflectionary that like 3, if not 4 of the guys that I've just mentioned in the starting 5 all have been considered top 50 or top 100 players. And Wendell Carter Jr. is one of those players that's either on the back half of the top 100 or not included at all. And it's because his archetype, again, related to Al Horford, who is a player who still is very productive even to this day and has been very influential in a handful of different, very successful postseason teams. Wendell Carter Jr. has never played up to that level on a consistent basis. He's shown flashes, but he's never truly actualized a full season of being this rim protecting defender on the interior and being a guy who you have to trust as like a savvy veteran type offensively. Knows how to pick his shots, can be a good IQ passer. These are all things he has the capability of dating back to his time in Duke. I mean, you can make the argument that really Wendell Carter Jr. helped Marvin Bagley's draft stock once upon a time, because Marvin Bagley was terrible as a defender, but Wendell Carter Jr. was so good as an internal defender that it actually made Marvin Bagley the third look good in Duke on the defensive end. That's something that Wendell Carter Jr. just has not maintained real consistent faith in throughout his time in the league, even with the Chicago Bulls. If he can get back to being that caliber of a rim defender while also being this good of a passer in terms of decision making, completely new wrinkle for the Orlando Magic defensively. Again, and offensively for that matter. And again, this is a team that finished top 2 in the league defensively last year, despite not having the defensive ace on the perimeter in Jalen Suggs for half the year. So to me, Wendell Carter Jr. is very important to this team in terms of being able to take the next step, because everybody else kind of knows what the best version of themselves is, and they just need to get back to it or reach some facsimile of it. Wendell Carter Jr. is the only person that we truly haven't seen. I know Jonathan Isaac said Desmond Bane hasn't even scratched the surface yet. Wendell Carter Jr. is genuinely the only person in the starting lineup who we haven't seen at least scratch the surface of what his potential is. Every other starter in the starting 5, at least we've seen a sniff, a whiff of what like the best version of themselves is. So I think Wendell Carter Jr. is quietly the most important player in the starting 5, and I think a one of the 3 most important players on the entire team in terms of their individual development and what that means for this team if they want to be not just like a playoff team, because they've done that before, but a team that can make a deep playoff run, if not win the championship this year. Let's go to the third thing, which is the Magic defense. This goes back to what I was saying about Wendell Carter Jr. before, about not really actualizing himself all the way, because defensively this team was in a tough spot. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the Orlando Magic allowed it was either 73 or 75 points in the paint in this game. I think it was 75 points in the paint of their 112 points allowed in this game. I'll double check it in the midst of the conversation. But essentially, the New Orleans Pelicans were able to get to the rim relatively at will. And that's scary, because although this Orlando Magic team is very strong at protecting the 3 ball, and they were able to do it in this game as well, this was a game where realistically it was a representation of the fact that this team needs a rim protector. Whether that's Wendell Carter Jr., who develops into an elite level rim protector, whether that's Jonathan Isaac being able to step up as another rim protector for this team. The reality of the situation is this team is a elite rim protector away from really solidifying themselves, because they have some of the better point of attack defenders in the league with Jalen Suggs. I would say Desmond Bane is a above average point of attack defender for his size. Anthony Black has positional size. Franz Wagner has positional size. Tristan Da Silva has positional size. It all comes back to positional size and their ability to guard on the perimeter. But 72 of 125 points allowed in the paint. And honestly, it was one of those things that gave the New Orleans Pelicans life in the second quarter after allowing 38 points in the first quarter. So this Orlando Magic team was heating up offensively out the gate. And again, I mentioned that Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner scored 13 of the first 15 points for the Magic. Now the youth kicks in of not getting too big for your britches now that you got a lead. Now the youth kicks in of, don't forget that this defensive identity that we've established over the last 4 years is still the root of this team. Just because we got acquisitions of Tyus Jones and Desmond Bane, who both did also start in this game, obviously, does not mean that because we're creating a more offensively competent lineup means that we're not going to compete on the defensive end. Point of attack defense is just as influential on allowing points in the paint as a rim defender is. So those guys on the perimeter, Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones, that's going to be important. That's going to be an important thing to watch this upcoming season. If, Jalen Suggs misses significant time, that backcourt clearly is vulnerable because Slashing, driving now becomes more opportunistic if you're able to pick on Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones as perimeter defenders. So 72 points in the paint, not acceptable. Now, I will say that the most important thing is the 3-point line. Something that's been a trend throughout the entirety of the preseason for the Orlando Magic is that they only allowed about 29% from beyond the arc shooting. That's huge because that's going to keep them in ball games. In today's NBA, where the three ball is king and teams are averaging 35 to 40 plus 3-point attempts per game, being able to hold opposing offenses to 35% and lower, 35% being league average, so really lower than 35% from beyond the arc, is going to be influential in keeping them in games. If I'm not mistaken, I also believe that the Orlando Magic had a pretty decent 3-point shooting night of their own because they were in a position, I think they shot 9 of 24, somewhere around there, about 39% or so. All they have to do is stick steady. They don't have to go from being the worst 3-point shooting team in the league to being the best 3-point shooting team in the league. They just need to continue to guard the 3-point line at a decent rate and be a league average, if not better, 3-point shooting team. First of all, league average is 35, really nowadays 36%. They shot 29% from beyond the arc as a team last year. So let's say on average, that's knocking down another 2 threes per game and adding 6 more points to your offensive output. I don't have the exact numbers on this in terms of how many games they lost within 10 points. But for this Orlando Magic team, especially if they're healthy, that's at least an additional 4 to 5 wins output-wise, simply by getting another 6 points per game to your total PPG average. That's it. 29. That's just going from 29%, which was terrible, and a NBA historically bad season as far as shooting the 3-ball, to league average as a team. That difference alone changes so much in terms of the outcomes of games, the consistency of this team as a perimeter shooting team, and also it just puts them in the mix with some of the best offensive teams in the league, because not every team that leads the league in scoring is the best 3-point shooting team in the league. When you look at the top 10 offenses in the NBA, not every single one of them is a top-level 3-point shooting team. Great example, Denver Nuggets. Why were they so good as an offensive team last year in terms of points per game? Outside of having Nikola Jokic, obviously, because that usually helps when you have the best player in the NBA, is because they were one of the top 5 teams in pace of play last season. It increases their overall output because they're getting more possessions. They're playing faster. Shout out to Russell Westbrook. They're playing faster, and by proxy, they're getting more opportunities to create offensive possessions. That was what's been preached this entire preseason for the Orlando Magic, and I think that new wrinkle, paired with just simply being an average 3-point shooting team, again, average 3-point shooting team, can take them from being bottom 10 to top 15. Or really, not even bottom 10, because last 4 years, they've been somewhere, I think the highest they've been is like 20, 26, maybe 23. So we're talking bottom 7. So if you go from bottom 7 to top 15, while being a top 5 defense, which has been historically proven over the last 2 to 3 years that they are capable of doing, you are now in position to be in that conversation when we're talking about championship caliber teams, right? So let's go to the very last topic, and it's my biggest takeaways from preseason overall. With the biggest one being the headliner, obviously. This Orlando Magic team is just better. They are. They're just better. Offensively, this team is moving faster. Offensively, this team has been preaching the word aggressiveness all summer, and you can see guys taking that to heart. Tristan da Silva, more aggressive with a shot. Anthony Black, more aggressive as a driver this preseason. Jet Howard, Jamal Mosley knows something that we don't. And maybe it's maybe it's something that we do know, which is that Jet is playing for a contract. Jet is playing to stay on this team. Jet is playing for establishing footing in this league because Jamal Mosley did not play Jace Richardson until the late third quarter in this last preseason game. And I don't want to overgas that or anything, but he didn't play until the late third quarter, despite the fact that he's been very productive this preseason, and even dating back to Summer League. Jet Howard got a bulk of those shooting guard minutes next to Anthony Black in that backup unit, where I think also Goga Batadze got a lot of burn as well. This team, I think, wants to be deep. They clearly want to be more aggressive as a shot hunting team, not just particularly in terms of shooting the three ball, but putting the ball on the floor, stressing the defense, attacking the paint, drawing fouls. Like, this team clearly understands that for them to become more efficient, especially as a half court team, they have to stress the defense by attacking the paint more often. Yes, they're already a slashing squad because they're a team that's very athletic and rangy, not a very good three-point shooting team outside of a few players on paper, so they attack the paint a pretty decent amount. But it's the way they go about seeking out contact that's changed in the preseason, where you can see a lot of guys attacking the paint with intentions to score and finish around the rim with contact in mind. I think, honestly, Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner were the only two players on this team that I felt confident in before preseason of constantly creating free throw opportunities. And slowly but surely, guys like Anthony Black and Tristan da Silva, who both have developed as three-point shooters throughout this preseason as well. I think Anthony Black knocked down 2 in this game. And I think Tristan da Silva also knocked down 2 or 3 himself in this game. This is a squad that is now positioned well from a philosophical perspective, because you have the athletes. You have the positional size across the spectrum, both in the starting lineup and into your bench. Now they have the philosophical mindset paired with the three-point shooting talent, right? Because that helps to have guys that put stress on the defense from the perimeter. Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones. When they get Jalen Suggs back, Jace Richardson, Chet Howard. It looks like, there's some development there with Anthony Black and Tristan da Silva, as well as 3-and-D wings on the perimeter as well. It's all coming together. Now, again, are we going to oversell preseason? No. No, we're not. But preseason showed this team can be a good rebounding team. They were one of the best rebounding teams to end preseason. Now, obviously, a couple more teams still have games to play, but they are going to end as one of the best teams in preseason as a rebounding squad. They were one of the best teams defending the three-point line through 4 games. They were one of the better three-point shooting teams through 4 games. And this had a lot. This was all done without having one of their main starters play in any of the 4 preseason games. So my biggest takeaway is that this Orlando Magic team is better offensively, and if they're better offensively and can maintain what they've been as a defense the last 3 years, this team is exceeding the expectation of at least getting past the first round. No question. I would even go on a limb and say I think this team has the capability of making the Eastern Conference Finals like this year. I'm going to do full-fledged predictions for this Orlando Magic team for a couple of different things on Monday's episode, because that'll be kind of the last real preseason episode before things kick off with the Orlando Magic on a when the full 82 games start. So my last real quote-unquote preseason prep episode before the 82 games grind starts will be where a lot of my predictions for this team and individual players on this team, some hot takes there, here and there. That'll be on Monday's show, so tune in for that. But my biggest takeaway for this team is definitely that I think they've improved offensively. And if they can be, again, a middle of the pack offense this year, while still maintaining what they've been as a defensive unit, or even if they regress defensively from the second best defense in the league last year to still in the top 10, that still positions you to be a real contender out in the Eastern Conference. You guys let me know in the comment section down below what was your biggest takeaway from preseason? Again, I know we don't overblow preseason. The games don't necessarily matter on the scoreboard, on the record books, but they do matter in terms of getting an understanding of what your team is trying to do, what your team is trying to be during the regular season. So you guys let me know in the comment section down below how you guys feel about what preseason was for the Orlando Magic, what you saw in the 4 games that you liked, what you saw in the 4 games that you hated a little bit. And I'll check those out because those will be things that I can use to help me kind of construct my predictions when I put that episode together for next week. But with that being said, this has been another edition of the Magic Latest Podcast. Again, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily Orlando Magic content. And yeah, the regular season is upon us. We are literally right around the corner from the start of the 82-game grind. Hope to see you guys every single step of the way. Until next episode, peace.